notorious fighter.
I got a tip for you. Be nice.
The movie begins with an underground boxing fight. Carter, a man who's thrilled after winning several matches in a row. He's full of energy. But it seems the tide is about to change. When Dalton takes off his hoodie, you can almost see Carter's confidence disappear. Carter clearly known Dalton as a ruthless fighter, and he's is not a match for Dalton, so he run out from the fight. All the money goes to Dalton. When Dalton leaving, a man furious over losing his bet suddenly stabs him. Dalton doesn't even flinch. The attacker quickly realizes he picked the wrong person to mess with and backs away. While Dalton looks for something to treat his wound, a woman named Frankie approaches him. She introduces herself and explains that her bar is constantly troubled by violent people, and the authorities aren't doing anything about it. She offers Dalton a job as a bouncer with a salary of $5,000 per week.
I can pay you good money, $5K a week, just for a month, and I can put you up.
I'm all booked up. Sorry.
Dalton isn't interested. Before leaving, the bar owner gives Dalton a calling card in case he changes his mind. Dalton has no phone, no home, and his car is falling apart. He looks exhausted with life. At one point, he even considers letting a train hit him. But when he changes his mind, his car won't start and it gets struck by the train. For some reason, Dalton survives. He begins to think that Frankie's offer might be the fresh start he needs. Dalton travels to Frankie's town in Florida. There, he meets Charlie, a young girl who owns a bookstore, and her father, Fred. They show him the way to the bar. Eventually, Dalton arrives at the place called Roadhouse. Inside, he's recognized by a waiter named Bill, who says he's a fan. The place seems quiet, and Dalton comments on how peaceful it is. Laura, the bartender, just smiles. She knows the calm won't last long. She's right, because moments later a fight breaks out. Dalton stays calm and lets his co-workers handle things first. Later that night, a group of bikers arrives. Laura knows the situation is about to get worse. The gang's leader starts causing trouble, acting like he fears no one.
Wow, it's like a Morgan here.
Everyone in the bar is clearly intimidated until Dalton steps in. He asks the troublemakers if the motorcycles outside belong to them,
Those are your bikes out there, right?
then calmly walks out. Alarmed, the group follows him. Dalton politely asks the leader to leave peacefully. When the leader threatens him, Dalton jokingly asks if they have insurance and how far the hospital is.
Hey, Frankie,
Yeah,
is there a hospital nearby?
literally, who gives a shit?
Shut the fuck up and fight, asshole.
Before things escalate, Dalton takes them on one by one. Even when they fight back, they only end up more badly beaten. Dalton proves he's formidable in combat. After the fight, he even borrows a car and personally drives the injured bikers to the hospital. At the hospital, a nurse named Ellie jokingly calls Dalton a troublemaker. Seeing his injuries, she offers to treat him and asks if he wins his fights. Dalton replies that no one really wins in a fight. As Dalton leaves, some thugs begin keeping an eye on him. Back at the roadhouse, Frankie gives him his pay. Dalton asks if he can stay in an old houseboat, and Frankie agrees, joking that he should watch out for the alligators. That night, Dalton dreams about his final fight in the UFC, where he was the challenger. Just as his name is announced, he wakes up to a call from Laura, who has brought him breakfast. She tells Dalton that many bouncers have worked at the roadhouse before but never lasted long, and she hopes things will finally improve with him around. After eating, Dalton goes to Charlie's bookstore to use the facilities. While browsing, a group of bikers starts causing trouble at a nearby shop. Holding a bat, Charlie tells them to leave, but they just laugh. When Dalton steps outside, one of the bikers recognizes him, and the group quickly backs off. Dalton slowly begins to grow fond of the town. He's making new friends and feels accepted by the people. Meanwhile, on a yacht, the biker gang meets with their boss, Brant, who calls them idiots for failing to take down a mere bouncer. Back at the bar, another disturbance breaks out because someone doesn't like the band's music. Dalton trains Billy and lets him handle the troublemakers. Billy successfully follows Dalton's instructions, but when the troublemaker tries to attack again, Dalton steps in to help. Afterwards, he lets Billy escort them out and keep order among anyone else looking to start trouble. The next day, Dalton notices a staff member named Riff with scars on his knuckles. He soon learns that Riff is a former boxer. Dalton pairs Billy and Riff together to help maintain order at the roadhouse, making his job easier. While helping a drunk man safely out of the bar, Dalton notices the biker gang outside glaring at him. They threaten to come back. That night, he again dreams about his last UFC fight. Back then, he was fearless and eager to challenge anyone, but now he prefers to avoid conflict whenever possible. The next morning at a diner, Dalton runs into Ellie again. He tells her he wonders why everyone in the area seems so aggressive. Ellie warns him to be careful with the people he crosses because they're likely to seek revenge. Even the police can't do much against the influential figures in town. During their brief conversation, it's clear they like each other. After another week of work, Dalton collects his pay and heads back to the boathouse. On the bridge, he notices a vehicle slowly approaching. Suddenly, it speeds up and tries to hit him, but he dodges. The vehicle reverses quickly and charges again, knocking him into the water along with the pickup truck. Fortunately, he survives the attack. When he arrives at the boathouse, the biker leader Dell is waiting with a shotgun. Dalton reacts quickly, flipping a table and grappling with him until he throws Dell into the water. Dalton wants to make up for past mistakes and avoid killing anyone, but Frankie's joke about the alligators turns out to be true. A massive alligator appears and makes the biker leader its dinner. The next morning, the police search for Dell's body, but someone says they won't find it because alligators hide their food. At the bookstore, Charlie shows Dalton a map of the roadhouse, and he feels something strange about it. As he steps outside, a man appears with a gun and orders him to get into the car. Remaining calm, Dalton faces him and warns that he might not be able to use his gun if he insists on forcing things. The man immediately pulls out his gun, but Dalton quickly breaks his fingers. He tells the man's companion to inform their boss that if he wants to meet, Dalton will be at the roadhouse every night.
Wants to talk to me? I work at the roadhouse and I'm there every night.
Back at the roadhouse, Dalton asks Frankie why Dell and his gang are targeting the bar. Frankie brushes it off, saying it's probably just business competition. Meanwhile, the man with the broken fingers returns to his boss, Brant, admitting he failed to bring Dalton in. Brant becomes furious that his plans are being ruined by a mere bouncer. Moments later, he received a call from his father in prison. He throws his phone into the sea and orders his men to retrieve it from underwater. That night, Brant's father calls Knox, asking him to fix the trouble caused by his son. Knox prepares himself and immediately heads to Florida. At the harbor, Ellie surprises Dalton with her ex's speedboat and takes him to her favorite spot in the middle of the sea, where she wants to have a picnic. As they talk, Dalton mentions his problem with Brant. Ellie reveals that Brant's family is extremely wealthy and owns a large portion of the local land. Ellie starts asking about Dalton's personal life, which makes him uneasy. He says he doesn't want her to know about his past, but Ellie says she already knows and doesn't care. Slowly, Dalton opens up to her, and they share a closer, more intimate moment. Meanwhile, Knox arrives at Brant hideout. He doesn't care about the motorbikes he knocks over in the parking area. He even complains to the men there that the sandwich they gave him is lacking. When Brant arrives, Knox punches him, saying he was sent by Brant's father to fix the mess and deal with the problem involving the bouncer. Despite being hit, Brant convinces Knox to give him another chance to handle Dalton himself. When Ellie drops Dalton off at the boathouse, the police are waiting to take him in for questioning about Dell's disappearance. At the station, the sheriff warns Dalton to leave town or face serious trouble. Dalton's clever responses irritate the sheriff, so his men beat him, and the sheriff kicks him before pointing a gun at him. When Ellie arrives, she slaps her father, the sheriff. She takes Dalton away and explains that her father and Brant's father used to be friends, but when Brant's father went to prison, the sheriff began working for Brant. While all this is happening, Brant's men start causing trouble again. Dalton arrives at the roadhouse to begin his shift. Dalton finally comes face to face with Brant, who deliberately went to see him. Brant knows Dalton cannot be intimidated or bought. He even shows Dalton footage of his controversial UFC fight, the one where Dalton killed his opponent with a single punch. Brant steps outside and orders Knox and his men to take Dalton down and destroy the roadhouse. Knox arrogantly announces that the roadhouse now belongs to him, then begins causing chaos and smashing everything in sight. Billy and Riff notice the disturbance and try to stop Knox, but Knox knocks Billy down and easily defeats Riff. Others attempt to help, but Knox is simply too strong. Soon, Brant's men join in, attacking customers, and a massive brawl erupts. All Dalton wanted was a quiet coffee break, but Knox keeps provoking him. Dalton finally faces him bravely. Knox points at Dalton and says he came here just for him. The two clash. Knox has the advantage because of his immense strength and the support of the gang. Dalton is nearly knocked unconscious by the punches until someone briefly helps him. Knox eventually lifts the badly beaten Dalton and throws him outside. Bruised and injured, Dalton quietly stands up. Instead of continuing the fight, he chooses to walk away. When Ellie and the police arrive, they find much of the bar already destroyed. Back at the boathouse, as Dalton packs his belongings, Frankie tells him the truth. Brant wants to take over the roadhouse property to build a massive resort, but she refuses to sell. Frankie asks Dalton if he's afraid of Knox. Dalton admits that he is, but for a reason she wouldn't understand. Meanwhile, Brant is informed that Dalton is still alive as he stares at the site of his future resort. Dalton heads toward the bus station, ready to leave town. On the way, he passes Charlie's bookstore, now burned down. Firefighters tell him that Charlie and her father were taken to the hospital. Because Charlie was the first person who befriended him in town, Dalton decides he can't just leave like that. He goes straight to Brant's hideout and finds one of the henchmen there. Dalton tells him that burning Charlie's bookstore was a huge mistake. He punches the man in the throat, leaving him unable to breathe before he collapses into the pool. Dalton admits he's afraid of killing someone once their evil goes too far. A biker sees Dalton loading the injured man into a pickup truck. Terrified that he might be next, the biker quickly reveals where and when the next meeting will take place. The next morning, Dalton goes to where Brant can be found. At first, he targets a police officer carrying a box full of money, enough to live on for a lifetime. Dalton devises a plan to frame the officer for the killing of one of Brant's men. He knocks the officer unconscious and then reports the crime to the authorities. While Dalton prepares explosives, Ellie's father, the sheriff, arrives. He tells Dalton that Brant has kidnapped Ellie and will kill her unless Dalton returns the money. Dalton is suspicious but agrees to meet, bringing the money in case the threat is real. Dalton takes the speedboat from Ellie's ex, who is a police officer, right in front of him. Meanwhile, Knox wanders into Brant's hideout but finds no one there. On Brant's yacht, the sheriff is resting and claims that the kidnapping story was a lie, until Brant admits it's true. Furious that his accomplice really kidnapped his daughter, the sheriff becomes enraged. Brant is also furious at Dalton for constantly interfering. All he wants is to get his money back. Soon to their spot, Knox approaching. Dalton seizes the opportunity to detonate the explosives he brought. The explosion throws everyone into chaos and gives Dalton the chance to search for Ellie. He finds her locked in a room. As the windows shatter from the blast pressure, they escape into the water and Dalton fights off enemy thugs. Ellie manages to board one of the yachts, but Brant is there and captures her again. Meanwhile, Dalton boards Knox's speedboat and the two clash. Dalton manages to knock Knox into the water, though Knox clings to a rope. When Brant sees them, he deliberately rams their boat. Dalton jumps onto Brant's vessel, while Knox is flung into the sea. Ellie and Brant continue struggling until Dalton joins them. Realizing the yacht is about to crash, Dalton and Ellie jump into the water, while Brant is thrown toward the roadhouse along with the yacht. Brant survives the wreck, but Dalton is determined to end the evil once and for all. Brant tries to use a spear gun, but Dalton quickly knocks him down. Moments later, Knox returns for another fight. This time, it's a fair one. A brutal showdown unfolds between the two fighters, like a match inside a ring. Knox's punches are powerful, but Dalton keeps fighting. Dalton manages to put Knox in a headlock, but Knox stabs him in the stomach. As Knox prepares to stab him again, Brant shouts angrily, ordering him to finish Dalton. Annoyed by Brant's attitude, Knox turns his anger toward him instead, giving Dalton the opening he needs. Dalton pulls out the sharp piece of wood lodged in him and drives it into Knox. Knox struggles, but in the end, Dalton finally eliminates him. The sheriff arrives and tells Dalton he's cleared of wrongdoing, but he must leave town. Frankie remains optimistic, saying the roadhouse will be okay. In the final scene at the bus station, Dalton says goodbye to Charlie. Charlie's father finds the box full of money, but when he looks for Dalton to thank him, Dalton is already on the bus, heading back to where he came from. With that, the movie come to end. If you like the recap, please subscribe my channel.